Welcome to EFactor's presentation of crowdfunding strategies and challenges. Today, we are excited to have Nicole Lee. She's the inventor of Pantry Chic store and the Dispense system, and she's the founder and president of Nick of Time. Nicole has spent the past 12 years progressing through positions of leadership and responsibility in sales and marketing in healthcare and media industries. She began her career in advertising with Clear Channel Communications in New York City and transitioned to healthcare working with Johnson & Johnson Pharmaceuticals. She won several sales awards and completed leadership development programs. She also took a specialty role in Johnson & Johnson Ethicon Medical Device Division, where she trained surgeons in New York City and landed several large contracts. So now what we want to do is we want to start the conversation with Nicole, asking her a burning question that we usually have from our fellow entrepreneurs. So Nicole?
Yes.
Why should anyone do crowdfunding at all?
First and foremost, I want to thank EFactor and you, Damien, for inviting me. It's a pleasure to speak to everyone, and I'm really excited to speak about my experience with crowdfunding. To answer your question, the whole experience of crowdfunding, the obvious reason is to gain funding for your project and to help with the development, et cetera. But for me and for many others, there's so much more potential that crowdfunding offers, and a lot of it is around learning more about your product's marketing. It's an opportunity to pre-sell your product in its early development stages. So for me, we have a functioning prototype. I don't have any units for sale at this time, and it's a great opportunity. I learned tons of insight from potential consumers on a variety of different things about the branding of the product, about how to package the product, how to price the product. So there's so many things that crowdfunding offers on top of funding for the actual project. And the last thing about it is crowdfunding offers a large audience. So you're gaining a lot of insight from a large population for a very, very small budget.
Nicole, also, now that you're talking about funding, one of the recurring themes when we talk about crowdfunding, it's not always about the money, it's about the people. So that also works while looking for investors, I guess. This gives you some kind of traction and validation. Do you think that's what people also do crowdfunding campaigns?
Absolutely, and there's a lot of investors that come on to these crowdfunding sites to take a peek at future innovations and whatnot. And I think there's an opportunity for the small investor, if you will, the common folk that, like you and me, that want to help bring something to market that they believe in for a small amount, for a small cost. Because personally, we may not have the funds to provide millions of dollars to an invention. And then you have investors. I mean, we've been approached already by a few potential large investors that would be interested in learning more about Pantry Chic in and of itself. So it's amazing the amount of interesting opportunities that come your way from just putting yourself out there, which is a scary thing for an inventor. I know I was petrified to put my idea out in the market until I received approval for my first patent. And that's something that, you fear some of that risk, but the opportunity to get insight from very educated people that are passionate about, probably the ones that are reaching out to you are going to be passionate about something that's in your lane of interest for your product.
So this leads me to the second question. Do you think there's a lack of funding? That's why crowdfunding has been so popular over the past years?
There's no lack of funding from what I see. I think there's lots of funding opportunities out there. There's just different types of funding now, and crowdfunding is a new, unique opportunity. The benefits of crowdfunding versus a traditional investor route is traditional investors, it's a long time frame. It takes a lot longer to get that money and whatnot. So crowdfunding, You know, it's a lot of people that can put a little bit of money up by the masses to get you where you need to go from a very early stage in your product life.
You talked about your first patent. How does bootstrapping fit in the whole process of you creating your product, you developing the idea? How does bootstrapping came into the mix?
It was very prevalent in the mix. Bootstrapping is a necessary part of the process. Ultimately, as you said in the introduction, I had a career in healthcare, and I made sure once I came up with the Pantry Chic store and dispense system, my savings was devoted to bring this product to as far as I can go on my own financial accord. And bootstrapping was a significant portion in getting the patents done, any legal obligations that I had in regards to that and protecting it and to incorporate. So the bottom line is you have to believe in your product, and if you don't, nobody else will. So if you kind of have to put your money where your mouth is to get the product going, and that's what an investor needs to do. If you have an idea and you truly believe in it, then you're the first person to back it.
So I'm going to take a little bit of a detour here and start talking about what was the process for you to file the patent? Was it hard? Is it something that you would recommend to other inventors to do?
Yeah, you know, the patent process, I think there's a lot of different opinions. For me, I did research on my own first to see if there was something out there, so I didn't waste my financial, you know, resources towards this. So I wanted to make sure that there was something unique enough. And I think the first thing that I wanted to do was file for protection for the idea, and I did a provisional patent, which gives you a year to further investigate if this is something you want to file, which when I did, after a year, I did file for a formal utility patent. But that year gives you the opportunity to research before you invest lots of money on the whole patent process. And ultimately, I highly recommend going down the provisional patent route. If you can get any legal advice from any peers or any sites, any legal sites, any legal counsel you can get, I would try to seek that before you put your idea right out there for someone to take a view at.
So this also, how would you tie the patents to crowdfunding? Because as you said, probably through crowdfunding, you're going to get some kind of validation of your idea. And it's probably nothing when you start your crowdfunding campaign. You can probably not have even a prototype. So would you recommend to have the patent before to research into that? Or can you go into the crowdfunding campaign and then say, well, with the money that I'm getting from the campaign, I'm going to file for the patent?
So that's a great question. And it's one that, from a couple things. Kickstarter, for example, you have to have a prototype to show during your video. You need to actually show that. So one would assume that if you have a physical prototype, you have some sort of protection if it is patentable in and of itself. But then you have IndieGoGo that allows you to bring your product, rendering suffice, and that's enough. I would say you need to bring your product far enough along that you are close and confident enough that you can bring this to fruition, and confident that someone isn't going to be able to take your idea easily. I mean, I'm a much more conservative person when it comes to sharing my idea. I kept it under the rafters for at least 2 years before I started even going out. So I think crowdfunding comes into play when you feel that you have enough protection or enough momentum to bring your idea and your product to market without feeling that you're going to get it, someone's going to pull it from you.
Okay, now I want to go into your idea. During those 2 years that you said you had it under the hood, what were you doing during those 2 years with your idea, and why don't you talk to us a little bit about PantryChic?
Sure. Well, first and foremost, Pantry Chic store and dispense system, it came to fruition. I lived in New York City, and I had a small kitchen with little space and no dishwasher. And I used to bake for the holidays for family and friends for gifts. And I unfortunately would like to call myself a good baker, but I can't necessarily say that my baking comes out very consistent all the time. So after a full day of baking and having inconsistent results, I said to myself, I would love to just take my bowl, put it under my canisters, and push a button and get exactly what I need straight into my bowl so I can have less cleanup and less measuring missteps. So long story short, I said, is there anything out there? And there wasn't. There was nothing out there that completely met my needs, that had a full storage system, simplifies the measuring process, and dispensed right in the bowl to minimize my cleanup. And that's kind of what Pantry Chic does for the occasional baker, and the professional baker actually really appreciates that as well. So for those 2 years that I kept everything under the hood, I did, one, file for the provisional patent, and then immediately after that I filed for my utility patent. Following that, I did lots of research. I incorporated my company, and I started working on with the engineers to validate the concept and come up with the breadboard. And a breadboard was basically used to identify what is the best way to create, what mechanism will be the most effective for this product. So a lot of it went into engineering right away.
Okay, so this is your second crowdfunding campaign, right? Mm-hmm. Can you describe the first one for us?
Yes. So the first one we did on Kickstarter, and that one was basically I created most of the content from scratch myself, and it was a really good campaign. We had a goal of $50,000, and we raised $35,000 with about 158 backers. And though we didn't hit our financial goals, we did deem it a success because ultimately we got tons and tons of feedback from potential consumers. And that's one thing that I can't emphasize enough about crowdfunding is it's a way to test your product in the market and test your messaging and really understand where the values lie. So we got a lot of press. We got press releases that were giving a lot of positive feedback about the product. I learned more about packaging structures, pricing structures, and the overall campaign. We've built loyal backers from it as well. I would like to say more of them came over to the IndieGoGo site, but what I learned from that as well is crowdfunders stick to the platforms that they prefer. It's a preferential thing. I didn't realize that they don't just promote crowdfunding. They actually, a lot of them have preferential treatment towards their platform of choice.
Okay, I'm gonna skip through some of the slides that you have here because we had a little conversation offline on the difference between these platforms, specifically IndieGoGo or Kickstarter. Mm-hmm. Would you like to talk a little bit about that? How do you see the difference happening?
Yes, so I think they both offer great things, but the short of it is the IndieGoGo platform seems to be much more hands-on, which is a huge perk, especially if you're new to crowdfunding. You're able to get someone on the phone, you're able to communicate live, and have someone help review your campaign prior to your launch. Kickstarter is more email-oriented, so you can respond and you can basically communicate with someone via email. Then the whole IndieGoGo is more, I would say, it's more friendly towards the inventor, the campaigner, due to the pricing structure, the way that they take the money. Backers some prefer to have their money, that they're able to adjust their pledges easily, and that is where Kickstarter, I think, overall has a more backer supportive platform, where they can easily change their pledges according to, you know, whatever they desire to do. So that was my take on it, and that's probably why the backers from Kickstarter did not transfer easily over to IndieGoGo.
Okay, just for our attendees to look at your PantryChic, could you go to the slide number 6?
Oh, yes.
So could you describe us a little bit that image that we have there?
Yes, so just going back into the differences in the campaigns, the first thing I should probably point out is what we learned is Pantry Chic is the target audience is women 26 to 54, and crowdfunding, this is not the ideal platform for the demographic that we're targeting. So crowdfunding is used more by younger males, and our target demographic is not the younger males. So the strategy that we geared towards from this one is we took the insights that we learned from the Kickstarter campaign, and we tailored the whole campaign towards meeting those insights. So for example, if you look at this picture here, one of the major questions that we got were the size of the canisters. They looked quite large, and you know, we didn't have any visuals that really showed the size of the canisters. So these pictures show there's a 5-pound flour bag, and the large canister is pretty much the same size. In addition, we put a frame of mind with the canisters, the assortment of canisters and how they stack in a cabinet. So that really helped. I didn't receive one single question about the size of the canisters during the second campaign. So we really took the customer insights from the first campaign, addressed them via visuals as well as content, and that really helped out. And the other thing that we did is our price points and packaging options. We really wanted to test them this time around, so we were more creative with our perks. And as I said before, the crowdfunders, we didn't realize that they don't jump from one platform to another quite easily. So that's kind of been a little bit.
Okay. And sorry, I had a little bit of echo there. Also, we were talking about how there are niche platforms now growing all over around this crowdfunding scenario. Yesterday, we had an event with Focus Product Design, again on crowdfunding, and we saw that a lot of platforms are going into specific markets. So how do you see this birth of new companies doing crowdfunding? Do you think it's going to be a trend still for 2015, or if you were to, are you planning to run another crowdfunding campaign in another platform?
Well, I'll never say never. But I think the niche crowdfunding platforms are interesting because you're getting the target audience that you're looking for. If you're going onto one of these, like if I were to go onto a food platform, crowdfunding platform, I know that the people that are going to be backers there are all interested in that sector of the business. So you probably are targeting your potential backers more. So I do think that's an opportunity or an area of growth, and you know, I haven't looked into it myself, but it is always an opportunity. And one thing we spoke about also is on these sites, you choose your category. And I can't emphasize enough that that's extremely important. For the first go around on Kickstarter, we chose the food category, and that's where we should have been. And we chose technology on IndieGoGo, and we were kind of pulled in with real technology, like, you know, and all these different unique things. So it wasn't the foodies that we were getting into. It wasn't any bakers or things like that that we were actually getting exposure to. So that's something that you really need to consider when you're doing your crowdfunding campaign as well, is what category do you fall in?
To tell our crowdfunders that there's a lot of strategy. Even selecting the platform comes with the strategy. So now, if we go to the slide number 9, you have the 5 key elements for a crowdfunding campaign.
Yeah.
Could you lead us through that?
Yeah. Well, the first one is obviously the obvious one. It's your product and your idea. And we were talking about this a little earlier. It really needs to be pretty far along so people will have the confidence in investing in your idea. The ultimate goal is you want them to believe that it's going to come to fruition. A lot of projects on these crowdfunding campaigns just don't come to fruition, so you need to give them the confidence in yourself and in the product that you're going to actually bring this to market. And the second thing is the pitch. You know, if you don't have a strong sales or marketing background, I suggest that you really invest in finding someone that does, because you really need to have a clear message, one that can effectively explain your features and your benefits and the unmet needs that your product will bring to the market and solve. The most important thing, to be completely honest, is the video. The video is your first thing on your website. It's giving you, I think the average person looks at the first 20 seconds of your video. So you really need to, in this video, sell yourself and sell your product. And that video is going to be, you know, it's just going to be your huge selling tool. And I can't stress it enough because, for example, my Kickstarter campaign, we had more of an infomercial video, and it wasn't a call to action. And that really impacted us. It was a great video, but it wasn't a call to action. So our second time around with the partnership of Focus Product Design, they did a phenomenal job of retweaking the video and revamping it to make it more time effective, as well as providing a call to action. And the visuals and the overall images on the site are streamlined and a lot clearer. I realized and learned fast that it doesn't, just because you put tons of content on your campaign does not mean everyone's going to look through it. If it's too much content, you're not going to get your message across. So your visuals are pictures speak 1,000 words. Providing a visual versus tons of words is will take your campaign to another level. The fourth one is the PR and the outreach. We did not focus on PR in the IndieGoGo campaign, and that was to our detriment, because the PR pre-campaign is very valuable. You get press releases which drive people to your actual campaign site. That in and of itself is very, very important and crucial. But the other thing is outreach. You really want to make sure you reach out to those family and friends that you know are going to support your campaign, and really have them help pepper the social media to make sure your campaign is getting enough exposure by those people that, one, you know will support you, and by their extended circles of friends. And then the last thing that it may seem surprising that it's on my key elements, but the logistics and shipping, that can make or break your funding. If you successfully fund your project and you don't have shipping accounted for, you could put yourself in a big problem. You could put yourself in owing money. You really need to know on international shipping if that's something that you can do. I would really explore how much your shipping costs before you launch your campaign, and make sure you have a strong padding for that so you don't put yourself in jeopardizing a funding situation.
We have a question from our attendees, and the question is, what did the investors or the backers get in return to their payment? For example, on Kickstarter, what did they get in return for the $35K that you got? I guess that this goes to the strategy behind the perks that you're offering, and also there's this other detail of flex funding or fixed funding.
That's a great question. The campaigns, the difference, I can't really say it's a difference now, because I do believe Kickstarter is offering a flexible as well, but we did a fixed campaign for actually both Kickstarter and IndieGoGo. The fixed campaign basically means that your backers vest in you, but they get their money back if you don't hit your goal. So we did not receive our goal on Kickstarter, therefore they were refunded their money. We never received any of the finances. And the same is going for, we chose to do a fixed campaign as well on IndieGoGo. From my research, IndieGoGo offers a flexible campaign, and that a lot of projects do a flexible campaign. And in that arena, you get every dollar that you raise, whether you hit your goal or you don't. Some backers are not really happy about that, but that's just, you know, again, a backer preference and also a campaigner's preference of what you want to do.
The other thing that I talk about when I say that when somebody tells me that they're running their crowdfunding campaign, and it goes back to the question that they were asking, how much did it cost you to get 35K? I guess that whenever somebody tells me I'm going to run a crowdfunding campaign and I don't have any money backing me up, I think, well, it's going to be hard for you to reach any kind of goal, because running a crowdfunding campaign actually takes effort, takes time, and sometimes, as you mentioned, it takes money on creating your video, creating your image, your brand, even registering your company. So what's your approach on that?
You know, that's a great question and a great concern, because I can't sit here and say it costs nothing just to you in front of the computer, because the reality is, depending on the complexity of your product, I have a product that is a new niche and it's quite complex. So I wanted to make sure I wasn't irresponsible with the minimal amount of funding that I currently have towards it. But the reality is you have to have a clean campaign. You have to have a good video. The video, to me, was a very important thing, and I think if you're capable of creating a good video on your own, you know, go for it. But if I'm going to put money anywhere, it would be in the video. And it would also, if you can make a good campaign on your own using PowerPoint, etc. What I did, to be honest, is I created all the content on my own for the first go around. And then I had a freelance, I have an outsourced model for my business so I can keep the finances low. And I hired a crowdfunding PR expert to just review things and give me their insight. And she saved me a lot of money, because I paid her on an hourly basis or paid her for a specific task. And you're absolutely right, Damien. It's a lot of work on the back end. When the campaign's launched and before the campaign as well, you have a lot of work to do. And if you can do most of it yourself, more power to you. But if there's something that you really shouldn't shortchange, it would be that video, because that's what everybody's seeing.
The second thing that I believe it's often overlooked is that, you mentioned it before, it's not about the money. It is about the money, but it's not about the money, right? So it's about the people. So how did you manage to create this outreach campaign? You mentioned that PR was something important that you probably overlooked during the campaign, but besides PR, we've heard from IndieGoGo, Kickstarter, and other crowdfunding platforms that these email outreach and getting people through email, it's actually really important. The response rate that you get from sending out emails and asking people to back you through emails, it's one of the most successful strategies. How did you manage to get your list, and how are you leveraging that information?
Yeah, well, statistically speaking, successful campaigns raise between 20 and 30% of their goal on the first day of the campaign. So that really is where your outreach, you know, should be targeted towards your friends and your family in the outreach. So what I did was, one, engage friends and family first and foremost. You know, I let them know what was going on. I sent email updates. I also established more of a web presence on Twitter and on Facebook. I joined like-minded community groups. I even joined, there's a lot of crowdfunding groups. I would highly recommend that you get involved in those prior to launching your campaign. Like there's Backers Hub, anything like that. You really want to become members of and get kind of comfortable in the crowdfunding world. because there's a lot of people that really give a lot of insight on those sites, and it's invaluable, that in and of itself. So I would recommend joining those like-minded community groups and starting conversations with them, so your name is not just jumping in when your campaign starts. They actually have a familiarity with your name prior to. And then on your Twitter accounts and your Facebook accounts, in order to, you really want to start following people that are, you know, in the same category, in the same lane as your product, but you also want to provide them interesting information. You don't want to just pepper them with your product information, which you absolutely need to do. Visuals are, again, 1,000 words versus, just one visual speaks volumes. And ultimately, I did a lot of visuals on Pantry Chic, but I also, to get myself, comfortable in the platforms, I looked at different kitchen gadgets that were out there, unique things, even other crowdfund campaigns, and I would tweet those. I would tweet a picture of those or whatnot. So I'm engaging and supporting other crowdfunders, which is another key to helping your campaign along. But getting involved with your social media, expanding your reach, and increasing your followers by giving good content, as well as joining all those additional groups, and then really engaging your friends and family, because that's going to be your first day. Your friends and family are going to help really get that campaign going fast.
Okay, so we have another question, and it is, if you would prefer family and friends to give you the money directly or through any of these crowdfunding platforms. And I'm going to try to answer the way I think it is. So when you talk about IndieGoGo or even Kickstarter, they have a wider reach. So if you hit that 20–30% of your campaign, in the case of IndieGoGo, there's this go-go factor, right, that you're looking for. So if you get to be one of the top funded IndieGoGo products or campaigns, you're going to be featured in newsletters as well as the website. I think that's one of the reasons that you want to go through crowdfunding instead of just keeping the traditional borrowing money from your friends and family. What's your intake on that?
I absolutely agree. I mean, the whole aspect of outreach to get some exposure for your brand is invaluable on these sites. I mean, it's a first step to bringing your product to market and getting that publicity to really test it out. It all goes back to, as I said, I mean, it is about the money, but it's not about the money. It's not just about the money. I mean, you can get some really strong opinions on and direction on your whole marketing platform. And it's for a very low budget if you think about it. I mean, again, I was in healthcare sales for this, and they spent hundreds of thousands of dollars for testing out a concept prior to doing any investigation. This is not even close to that amount of money that you have to spend to get feedback from potential consumers. So I absolutely agree with you, Damien. I think that's the value that it has. And not only that, I say this to my friends and family when I just, you actually choose a perk and you're getting something back from it. You're going to get a Pantry Chic store and dispense system. So I'm not asking for money for nothing.
Also, I think this takes us back to the start of the webinar when we said we run crowdfunding campaigns not only for the money, but also if we want to take this product and show it to an investor and they're going to ask, what's your track record? Even if you're not a seasoned entrepreneur, then you have a crowdfunding campaign on your back saying, well, we were able to deliver, 100 of these items, and people want it. There's demand for the product. So I think it works on the validation side as well.
Absolutely, I agree.
So here we have, how long does it take to a campaign to plan? Why three or more months? It seems so easy. Just go into one of these platforms and set up the campaign, and in one day or so, a couple of hours, I'm going to be live. Why 3 months?
Well, I wish it was just that easy. But you really have there's legwork to be done prior to the campaign, during the campaign, and post-campaign. Prior to the campaign, you really have to do, as I said, that PR, starting to seed the market, if you will, build up that social media. You want to make sure you're building up enough followers so that when you do launch your campaign, you're pretty confident that you're going to have enough backers to keep getting you to that 20–30% on your first day. So you also want to seed out those press releases. You want to make sure that you have some media that's going to be able to be in the ready, so when your campaign is about to launch, you already got all these press hits ready to go. All of these things have huge impact. And again, the goal is you want to get on that go-go factor. You want to get on the top of these websites so that these backers see your product front and center. If you do your campaign, the reality is I could just go input quickly things on the site, but it's not going to be, it has to look professional for people to really, look at it and say, wow, this is a legitimate product. This is very legitimate. You don't, and the video takes time as well. So I think it's the major reasons that it takes time is that you really need to build up your following base.
I have here I guess there are 3 items that I want to point out to our attendees, which are finalized packing, production, and shipping. We see that a lot of the campaigns that are successful, after they are successful, they fall short on this side. And a lot of crowdfunding is about communicating where you're at, what are you doing, what's your roadmap. And when you reach that point, which you probably were aiming for, let's say $30,000, and you probably hit the 500K mark, then all of these products that you promised, you need to ship them, you need to deliver them, you need to produce them, you need to manufacture them. How are you taking this cost into consideration for PantryChic?
Those are great questions, because that's another thing why it takes so long. You don't just figure that out after the fact, right? You have to have a plan prior to launch, because the goal is that you're going to hit your goal. So you need to have all of this. So you need to figure out your shipping beforehand. You need to know your shipping rates. And again, as I said before, if you don't know how much it costs to ship your product and you don't have that in the cost of your perk, then you could take a loss on each perk that you sell. So we had to plan that prior. We actually vetted out the cost of shipping by finding the poundage of the product, how much each package will be. And we also had to figure out from the canister standpoint, we had to figure out how much is that going to cost. What's the best way to package those so that our shipping won't be astronomical. We also had to decide, are we doing international shipping or not? All of these things should be done prior to your launch of your campaign, because I guarantee you will be asked those questions from your backers. And if you don't have an answer, or if you overpromise and say, yes, I can do that, you might be putting yourself in jeopardy of not making a profit. And for us, you have to align your manufacturing. We work with focused product design and engineer firm. They are very clear and capable of letting us know, manufacturing timelines, production timelines, and the estimated delivery dates. So we wanted to be very, very conservative with our promises to the potential backers of when we think we'll get this product to them. Those are all things that you should put out in your campaign as well. You also mentioned communication with them. Pending, obtaining your goal, or if you're doing a flexible schedule where you get if you get the funding regardless, I think it's very important to send out updates. I know for campaigns that I've contributed to, when I get updates, it makes you feel better. It makes you feel like, the company, it's very important to know how are things progressing, whether it's positive or negative. You always need to communicate with these backers to let them know where you are. Because as we said earlier, a lot of campaigns don't succeed, or should I say, they actually don't fulfill their campaign commitments. So investors are very sensitive to that.
Yeah, and now that you mentioned that you've invested in campaigns, I would like to know, why do you invest in those campaigns? Because crowdfunding has this feeling that you are part of something bigger. So in your case, when you look at PantryChic and when you look at previous campaigns that you've backed, how did you make that decision of, well, I'm going to back this campaign and I want my campaign to look similar to X or Y campaign?
Well, the first thing that any campaign that I tried to resonate to do the Pantry Chic campaign was simply, I like the video, I like the direction, I like the clarity. That's kind of how I said we wanted to do it. And I think, as I said, Focus partnered with us and did an excellent job with this campaign visually and with the video as well. I chose to back just a couple. I'm just getting my feet wet with backing as well, and I think it was really important for me to back a project or two to understand the process from a backer side. I think being a campaigner is one thing, but being a backer, you can learn the other process on how campaigns flow, how they're run, and how you would like to be treated as a backer. So I chose a product that was already hitting their goal for my first one, so I can really see why they're hitting their goal and why they're doing well. And they have been sending fabulous updates, et cetera. And I felt that product, I looked at the video, they spent time on the video, and it was of interest to me. And the second one, I actually, it had a parallel with Pantry Chic. The product wasn't hitting goal yet, and it had a parallel in regards to simplifying measurement processes for drinks. And that resonated with me, and I actually reached out to the campaign manager, and she and I spoke, and we kind of cross-promoted each other. So there's a lot of benefits to being, if you're planning on doing your own campaign, to reaching out and supporting other campaigns. It's networking.